Welcome to English for Engineers. I'm your host, Olivia Augustin. Tune in as I dig deep into all things technical English, business English, and international business communication to bring you a lifetime of knowledge in a digestible format. Hello, friends, fellow engineers, and the occasional word nerd who's listening in. Let's jump right into it. Today's guest at the English for Engineers podcast is Natalie Peart, a Brit who moved down under to Australia. She is the owner of Jobspeak Academy, where she teaches you English for job search and workplace English so that you can have the Australian career of your dreams. Her mission? To help international students, refugees, and migrants in Australia to have the Australian career of their dreams. But Natalie isn't your average English teacher who helps you with grammar on your resume. She's an English teacher who worked for the Australian government as a job coach. So that is awesome. And that means she is knowledgeable and an expert in the field of interviews, resumes, and job search in Australia. Hello there. Hi, Natalie.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Olivia. And hello, everyone. Beautiful introduction there.
Oh yeah, I did my best
Yeah.
to set you in the spotlight.
Yeah.
Anything that I forgot? Anything that you need to add?
No, absolutely. No. So yeah, I'm from Scotland originally, but yeah, I'm in Australia now, and I specialize in Australia because every job market and every workplace has a quite often different communication styles, different workplace etiquette, especially within job search as well. So that's why I specialize in Australia. So everything I do is kind of English for job search and English for work. So it's got the employment skills because I'm very, very focused on real life English and not just the English that we get in textbooks, and also learning English in an authentic way as well.
So when we were discussing our episode together, we were slightly touching the IELTS test, and
Mhm.
we both do not teach IELTS for the reason because we don't think it's authentic. But I get those questions a lot by my
Yeah.
clients, um, and they ask me, should I take an IELTS test?
Hmm.
And I totally understand that the idea of having some official certificate is something they want or people think they have to get,
Hmm.
and a proper piece of paper that confirms your general ability to speak English. And I think engineers like it because it's measurable.
Yeah.
But um, why do you not teach IELTS English, or why do you not teach or give prep lessons for those IELTS
Hmm.
tests?
Absolutely. So when I worked in colleges in Sydney, I actually did teach IELTS. I think it was
Mhm.
about 4 years I taught IELTS, and I taught academic English as well. The reason I do not teach IELTS now is because it's not real life. I mentioned real life before, and it's not real life. So I probably should mention as well that in Australia, for immigration purposes, people do need to take the IELTS test or the PTE test, and that
Mhm.
is just for the test for permanent residency. If you don't need to do that, if you don't need permanent residency, or if you don't want to go to a university that requires a test, there is no reason for you to do that. And the reason I believe that is because it's just a business model. It really is. Um, the questions that you get in IELTS, and what you are learning when you prepare for the IELTS test is just about test structure. It's just structure. It's learning time management. It's learning reading skills. It's learning how to answer a specific question, because you get lots of example questions with speaking tests, but you're not doing a test prep in real life. If you go to work and you're having an English conversation, they're not going to ask you those questions. So it's a business model. It's not real life, and it's kind of like playing a game in my opinion as well. So passing the IELTS test is like preparing for the test, but that's not real life.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So if you're not planning, so the short answer, if you're not planning to an English speaking country, if you're not planning to attend a university in an English speaking country, if you're just staying in your birth country or in any other country, it's just your business or your work language is English, you don't need it.
Absolutely not, because it's not the real
Mm.
English. Absolutely. So there's other things that you can definitely do to improve your communication ability and feel more confident when you're communicating. And I'm absolutely certain that you offer this, the technical English, the business English within your courses, Olivia. But yeah, IELTS isn't necessary unless it's an essential requirement in your immigration or in your, education. It's definitely not needed. It's not how we talk in the real world, hey?
No,
It's really
definitely not.
not.
Yeah, I love those memes on Instagram sometimes where there's one really short, authentic English sentence, and then a whole page if you
Yeah.
translate it into child's English. Mm.
And those Instagram posts that you see where it's like real life English, IELTS English. And can you imagine going into work and talking like the IELTS English? Like it's just not,
Yeah,
it's not how it
no,
is.
no, and we would need 80-hour weeks to
Yeah,
finish
100%.
all the sentences. Yeah. So, what is communication then? How would you describe communication? If you, what
Good
is it about? Is
question.
it about grammar? Is it about
Mm.
sentence structure? Is it about
Good
something else?
question. So what I teach my students and my community, through my social media and email and newsletter and things, is that use the English you have, especially when you get to a specific level. Use the English you have. I feel like so many people, when you're learning English, it's about learning more vocabulary, improving your grammar, and they want more phrasal verbs, more idioms, no collocations, etc. But there's only so many words that you can use. So instead, use the English that you have and communicate. So when you ask, what is communication? I guess I'll cut the story short here a little bit. Communication is expressing yourself confidently, or maybe not even confidently, maybe authentically. So I think authentically is probably the best way, in my opinion, I would say. So, you know what? If you're a little bit nervous in a conversation, that's okay. You're still authentic. Or if you need to ask someone to repeat themselves, that's okay. It's being
We do
authentic.
that in our mother languages.
Absolutely. I forget words
Yeah.
all the time. I have baby brain. Like it's I don't know what I'm saying all of the time. And it's just it's real life conversation. So for me, communication is being authentically you.
Hmm.
All the vulnerabilities, self-doubt, imposter syndrome that we all have.
Another question that comes up quite often. I just had that last Friday. It was interesting with a group of engineers that I was working. Of
Hmm.
I'm all still working with them. But last Friday they said, "But isn't that British English? But isn't that American English? I thought we're talking British English in this course." And I said, "We're foreigners. We can talk whatever we want. We can
Right?
mix together
Yeah.
different stuff. We can use that word. I love to say a wee bit and a tad. That's
Scottish wee
too
bit.
yeah, I love it. I love the word bahookie, Scottish. But on
Yeah.
the other side, I say stuff like y'all, and
Mhm.
I love the Southern U.S. American accent as well. So I'm a foreigner. I can mix together whatever I want
Yeah. I
because there is no such thing as high English like there's high
No.
German.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I actually don't know where that comes from, American English, British English. If someone actually does know, they can let us know. But it's all English, and you know what? English isn't just from America, Canada, Australia. English is a universal language.
Such a
English
beautiful melting
is,
pot.
yeah, English, you've got Malaysian English, Indian English, Filipino English. You've got
South
English
African
speak
English.
South African. Yeah, absolutely.
Pidgin English.
Exactly, all over. I don't know the actual statistics, but is it 70 countries maybe? I don't know. I remember looking for some reason. I could be absolutely wrong there, but there's a lot. And so just to, have British English and American English, I find it completely unauthentic, if I'm honest.
One of my students said, "But I have a book here. It says Oxford English." And I said, "Yeah." And then I
Yeah,
print a book and I call it Olivia English. So there we
absolutely.
go.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, for example, in Australia, I teach my students Australian communication style. And in Australia, they do use a lot of colloquial language, so phrasal verbs and things like that at work. And I do teach that so it's easier for people who then get a job to listen and be able to be involved in conversations, absolutely. But in terms of, the actual specific words for the same things and different things like that with American and British English, no, I
Mhm.
don't really teach that. I've never really believed in it. Even the term British English, it's like, is it Scottish, Irish, English, like
Yes.
Welsh, like what?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That I think that's the beauty of the being speaking English as a second language. We just
Mm,
have that huge pot that we can pick out
yeah, absolutely.
the cherries. Mm. So, could you walk us? I just think about that. Could you walk me or ask the listeners through the process how you help people who are working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Maybe. Oh, one more question. Maybe you can
mm,
because I know you work with engineers as well
mhm,
that are moving to Australia. Could you walk us through the process how you're helping engineers when
yeah.
they're working
So
with you when they're moving to the?
absolutely. So I guess I'll start by saying engineer, especially civil engineer, is a huge in demand job in Australia right now.
Mhm.
Like employers are really crying out, like really want engineers. I was just actually speaking to a not for profit today who recruit migrants who don't speak English as their first language. Um, and they're only focusing on engineers right now because
Oh wow.
there's a lot of employers, especially in regional Australia, who really need engineers. So that's how much of a demand it is. So how I work with engineers, well, I guess so. I have let's just start with the career community. So the career community is my job search membership. So the reason I've made it a membership and not a course or not a one-on-one service, I stopped doing one-on-ones about 6 months ago because I found that, I would help someone with a resume, but then I knew that they would still need help with job applications, with some networking, LinkedIn profiles, interviews, salary negotiation. So
Mhm.
just doing that one consultation just wasn't enough time
Enough.
for what they actually needed in the support. So a course, again, I felt like a course wasn't the right way because everyone's at different stages. Everyone, some people's resume is amazing. They just need help with job applications. Some people just need interview assistance. So with my membership, I help everyone individually but together. So there's resources and group coaching and training workshops for whatever stage of the job search phase that they're at. And in terms of engineers, so they would all industries coming together. They all, it's a community. I love how they help each other. So they all talk together, network together. But with engineers, so first of all, we would look at the resume. It's always about the resume. In every industry, every location has a different resume structure. So we'd make
Mhm.
sure that the resume was specific to industry engineering in Australia. We'd make sure that technical skills were focused because Australian engineers employment wise focus a lot on technical skills. They'd also want to see your achievements, your projects, if you've got any evidence, if you've got a portfolio. In Australia, they really value information about your projects, including
Interesting.
budgets and things like that you had. So we'd make sure that your resume was skills focused as well. So achievements, your skills on your resume, and not just a list of jobs that you've had. We in Australia, they really want to see the achievements that you've had.
You know what word just comes to mind now again, and we had that in the beginning of our recording is authenticity.
Mm,
Could have worked for so many big companies, but never done a real project there. So if the
mm,
Australian job world asks for a portfolio, that comes back to authenticity. What have you really
yeah,
done?
yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely. And the biggest thing I find with engineers, but to be honest, every industry I help with is that the process of helping you to identify your achievements and your skills is really long and really drawn out because one, it could be confidence you maybe forgot or you don't actually understand how much value you are to a company. When you move to Australia, you lose a little bit of your when you move to any country, sorry, not just Australia, you lose a little bit of the person that you are because you've been thrown into a new environment, a new language. So uncovering your achievements and your skills is really important. And then I guess from there there's a lot of LinkedIn in Australia, should mention LinkedIn,
Mhm.
essential. So your profile must really target with keywords the Australian engineering companies. So I would always get my engineers to research Australian companies that they want to work in. So, for example, if they're moving to Sydney, they would look for civil engineer or engineering companies within Sydney. Always look at existing people who work there to have a little sneaky look at their profile and see what they're saying on their LinkedIn profile. And then we'd put keywords into their profile, whatever that would be. So make sure they're coming up in search results.
Smart. So wow. So your help or the aid you provide, that's quite specific. It's like
Yeah,
hold my
it is.
hand. You really walk them through.
And
Yeah.
like it depends on the person as well. So I've had someone wasn't an engineer, but she was only in the career community for a month. But she just asked my advice, did the thing, and she had a job, a professional job, within a month. Other people, it does take that bit longer. It does depend on the person, the job, the industry, the location as well has a big thing about it. So yeah, there's a lot of I guess hand holding is the right word. A lot of support, and then when it comes to interviews and networking, we'd go back and forth with interview questions as well. Though I
Mhm.
do have a specific interview course.
Cool. So, what are the most common challenges that I'm always asking about engineers because they are
Yeah, of
listening
course,
to
of
this
course.
podcast,
Yeah,
I
of
guess.
course.
What are the most common challenges that engineers or technicians face when um, it comes to English communication
Okay,
in
so
Australia? What's
communication. Okay, so specifically to communication, I would say not being able to explain their experience succinctly. So it's really important that you explain your experience, give an example of what you've done or how you've used a skill. So using the STAR method. So just little quick thing. So when we answer behavioral questions in job interviews, we use the STAR method to give a specific example. So that
Can you
would be
explain that?
yeah.
What does STAR method mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So on my Instagram and my website, I've got lots of information about this. But STAR is S situation, T
Mhm,
task, A
mhm.
action, and then R result. So what that means is what was the situation that you were in at work or doing the job, using the skill. T, what task did you have to do? So you identified that you had to do something. What was that? A action, what specific actions step by step did you do? And then R result, what was the outcome, what was the result, because they love to know the outcomes. So using that structure, you're able to tell the story, because it's just storytelling really. Interviews, tell the story, keep yourself on track, and make sure that you are giving a specific example about what you did to the employer, to the recruiter.
And I can so understand why that can be difficult for engineers because
Mm.
they're so result driven and about facts and yeah, not the biggest talkers sometimes.
Yeah, I guess just thinking of a few in my mind now, it's there's been the been the thin line between talking too much and over explaining, maybe because not quite confident enough about their answer, instead of just using the strategy of the STAR method and then just giving a really basic answer. And I'm like, okay, a little bit more detail. So yeah, absolutely. Bit more.
Mhm. I'm just thinking, it's a while ago, I did an exercise, email writing with a group of engineers, and I set the scene. I say, imagine you're getting an email from a client asking this and that. How would you answer? You have 5 minutes, type that email and send it to me, and then we have a look at it
Mm.
together. And one engineer said, I will call them. And I said, yeah, but
People
it's an
hate calls.
Australian it's an Australian client, and he's sleeping right now, so you can't call. I
Mhm.
just wait until tomorrow. I said you can't because it's important and you have to have it written. Yeah. So it really they don't want to make a fuss. They just want to yeah get the job done. So I can imagine. Yeah, it is outside of Central Europe. There's way more storytelling
Yeah, yeah,
going on
absolutely.
than necessary.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest ones. And also, to be honest, understanding the hiring process and understanding the kind of the cultural differences in the workplace in Australia. So I mentioned the not-for-profit who only focus on engineers. Part of the reason that they've done this is because they see how many engineers are needed in Australia, but they also see that there's a lot of challenges, a lot of problems that people are facing in the recruitment process. So they're really helping people to understand what to do and how to do it. So yeah, they're doing really good work. So yeah, absolutely, communication and also just understanding how it works in Australia.
Mm. So you mentioned a different work culture. What's your experience
Mm.
coming from the United Kingdom to Australia? What's the big difference?
So I guess Australia's got this stereotype of being really, really relaxed. Everyone walks about with their swimmers on, their flip flops or thongs, as they say here. It's not that. So I was actually speaking to some of my client students, a few weeks ago about what they thought of Australian, communication and culture, and it took that conversation with them for me to fully understand what I feel as well. So they said that it's a combination of relaxed traditional. So you don't walk about with your flip flops on. They're very traditional in their approach, but they're also quite relaxed in their conversation. So
Yes.
a lot of drinks after work, conversations about small talk in the office, that kind of thing, but traditional in the sense that you have to be on time. You usually have to stay and work late. And a lot of my Brazilian, because there's a lot of Brazilian engineers coming to Australia, that's the majority of the people I've worked with who are engineers, and they just noticed that as an example, in Brazil, in the workplace in Brazil, maybe everyone would go out on a weekend, or if you have a party, you'd invite the whole of the office, or you'd give each other a kiss on the cheek on a morning. You wouldn't do that in Australia. So I guess that's what I mean by traditional. So
Mhm.
it's still quite but sometimes a little bit difficult to kind of integrate fully into the workplace. And even for me, I found this. And, having the support to do that by an English teacher, by a coach, to fully understand how to do it, what to say, how to engage is probably really helpful as well.
Mm. And I think that you can even provide more help than a native Australian because you realize the things that were not normal for you, so they are not
Yeah.
normal. Quote. Um, I put normal on the quote for people from outside of Australia. I,
Yeah.
I had the same experience I'm an Austrian married to a German, and I moved to the Netherlands. And the Netherlands are known for so easygoing and
Mhm.
chilled and relaxed and laid back. But there's that kind of, like you said, tradition
Yeah.
there as well. And it's so difficult to grasp that as a foreigner, to get a feeling for those unwritten rules.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that I realized, I asked Dutch friends and I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And they're like, "We thought that's normal. We thought that it's like everyone does it." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, totally not." So yeah, it can be
Absolutely.
difficult to. I always say I busted my head on a kind of a glass ceiling of traditions that I couldn't
Yeah.
see what was there, and it really hurts too.
Yeah, it is. It's just moving to another country, I think, can be really challenging, especially if it's a different language. So, absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's great that you provide that support. I think that's really very, very valuable.
Mm.
Um, what else do we have? So, what I wanted to ask you, should have asked that in the beginning. How did you end up in Australia
Oh,
from
good.
rainy Scotland to warm Australia?
Warm Australia, really warm Australia. It's so hot right now. So, good question. So, I guess I was lucky enough to spend most of my 20s traveling. So, I've worked, in South Korea, in China, in India, and I've done a lot of traveling around that as well. So, I honestly spent most of my 20s in different countries. And then I moved to Australia just over 9 years ago. And I was just finished working in China and I did a bit of a trip in Nepal and Tibet. And Australia was just kind of the next destination in a way. So
Mhm.
a working holiday visa is something that almost everyone does from the UK. Not everyone. That's very it's not very, that's very ignorant to say that. A lot of people does to say in Australia. So you do your working holiday visa, you stay for a year or two, then you go back home. Um, travel. I always kind of knew travel was just something I do, but I moved to Australia, and then I met my partner, and that's the end of that story.
Okay.
That's no, yeah. So I met my partner. He was actually living in London at the time, and then he came back, and yeah, absolutely. So then we just stayed. It's definitely a much better quality of life in Australia, in terms of opportunities, in terms of housing, and in terms of weather, in terms of outdoor activities, nature. So yeah, so I just stayed because it's really lovely here.
So you're not really homesick, or not that often.
No, unfortunately, I miss my family. My mum's visiting right now. She comes and stays once a year, and she probably will end up coming over here as well. But I do miss it. But yeah, it's just different. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't. I not yet. Not yet. I wouldn't go home. Home. I
Yeah,
still say
same.
home though. Home.
Same here. Same here. Like I live 1,000 kilometers away from my family, and I miss my family,
Yeah.
but I can't really picture me moving back
Absolutely. That's
to
exactly.
Austria. Not even Germany. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's a
just
weird. I was actually speaking to someone else about this, and it's kind of like a weird, almost limbo. Like you're stuck. Like you say home here, you say home there. It's like you don't really know quite where your home is. You just know where you are, like where you want to be right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a bit like that.
And for the Austrians, I'm the Dutch. For the Dutch, I'm the Austrian. So there's no
Same.
real definition of home anymore that
Yeah,
I could
and
go back to. It's like
absolutely.
I'm a hybrid.
Yeah, same. So my friends and family say I sound Australian back in the UK, and people here usually say, "Where are you from?" And people don't quite understand my accent. And so yeah, same as
Call
that
my
now.
mom. Yeah, I called my mom and talked Dutch to her, and she said, "Honey, I love you, but could you repeat that, please?"
There you go. It's
So I think
conflicting.
it is, yeah, it's a weird thing that's happening when you move abroad, but it's a great thing as well, I think.
Absolutely, you learn so much.
Oh, best experience. Yeah, best school you could go to. Natalie, thank you so much. If you could sum up, if you give you 30 seconds
Mm.
for your top tip for people who go to Australia and have to improve their communication, what's your top tip in 30 seconds to
In
improve
30 seconds,
communication?
communication. Just do it. So, okay, to emphasize a little bit more, just you push yourself out of your comfort zone. There are so many opportunities to actually communicate, to talk. It's not going to be perfect at first. You're going to make some mistakes, but the more you push yourself out of your comfort zone through networking events, through speaking to people in coffee shops and seminars and conferences, the more confident you will feel. And so the more confident you feel, the more prepared you will feel for work. So my biggest tip would just be honestly, just push yourself out of your comfort zone. You're never going to feel 100% ready to have the conversation to apply for the job. So just by doing it, whatever that will be, you will learn so much more in the process.
Perfect. Perfect last words. No, no pun intended. If you if you now think I need Natalie's experience in my professional life, I need her because I'm planning or thought about moving to Australia. I'm going to link her company details and her Instagram account in the podcast description and have a look at her site. So much value there. You will definitely love it. Natalie, thank you so much for your time and all your input. I love talking to you. And maybe we can repeat that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
no worries. Thanks for having me.
That was it. This was English for Engineers. I'm your host, Olivia Augustine. Talk to you soon.